And to me at the time, experimenting was speaking out loud what I felt. That was, to me, that was experimenting. So it's kind of like, how do I go to church on Sunday and live in this house where it's a strict, like Christian beliefs and morals, and then I got to spend 8 hours a day at school where none of that exists. You know what I mean? And I have to kind of like find my way, and kind of always feel like my mom is almost, because when you're that young, it's not God watching you, it's your mom watching you. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have a relationship with God that young, so it was like everything I did was kind of like with my mom over my shoulder. Like, I can't do this because I feel like my mom is gonna, you know what I mean? And I think when you get older, you develop that with God. But being young and writing, it was kind of just like,
Exercise 18. The door of the kitchen. The door of the kitchen.
The kitchen of Mary.
Mary's kitchen.
The
The dog's.
the pipe of Rip.
Rip's wife.
The newspaper of Mary.
Mary's newspaper.
The window of the kitchen.
The window of the kitchen.
The book of
Rip's.
my name is Steven. I go by Ugly Steven on Instagram. 23 years old, from South Jersey, a small town called Pennsauken. I am a poet. I'm a writer. I'm a student. Currently attend Rowan University in New Jersey. This May, I'll be graduating, degree in English. So, want to pursue that. Want to be a writer. Spoken word artist. As well. Yeah, that's me. I started writing poetry a couple years ago, about 5 years ago. Haven't looked back since. It started like an intimate, kind of like a personal thing, just writing for myself, kind of get my feelings on paper and kind of just like seeing what I was thinking, what I was feeling. It was kind of a way of just mapping out my thoughts that I didn't necessarily express all the time. And from there, it grew to the stage. I took a leap, got on stage after watching endless hours of button poetry, and from there it grew to what it is today. Family life, pretty basic. Pretty basic. Two parents, married parents. Always provided for us. We never went without for the most part in terms of what we needed. We weren't rich by any means, but my parents kept a roof over our heads, kept food on the table. I have a sister, older sister. I would, in terms of inspiration, I guess it comes from. I also grew up in a very Christian household. My parents are like very by the book Christian, I guess you would say. And it was kind of hard to express yourself in that kind of setting because everything is wrong if it's not Jesus or God or in the Bible. So the poetry kind of allowed that kind of outlet of like just experimenting with thoughts that I feel like were dangerous if I said out loud or acted on, or in terms of that kind of expression. And my cousin Philip, actually, he's in a band right now. And he was the first person, he's older as well, and he was the first person who I saw do something creative and really kind of like take ownership of it. And it was when he started playing guitar for the first time. And to me, it was amazing because he was the first person I saw in my family that wasn't doing the blue collar work to put food on the table. He wasn't, I mean, he was young, so he wasn't working to put food on the table anyway, but he was someone that I looked up to in terms of like a big brother figure. And when I saw him do something creative and putting his like passion and time and energy into it, he kind of showed me a side of my family, I guess, if you want to call it that, that I never saw before. And I think in a lot of ways, I'm not even sure if he knows this, honestly, but in a lot of ways, I think he inspired me to find a way to create for myself and be creative and be expressive, and develop a talent. And that kind of inspired me to be okay with writing, not just to write, but to be okay with it and understand that I can do it if I want to, that nothing and nobody is stopping me from doing that. So it's my family life. I think writing came. I always was into stories and books and novels and things like that, and I always kind of found it easy to relate with characters. And I think senior year English is when I really kind of found that writing was the way for me. My senior year teacher, Mr. Granary, just taught it at such a passionate level that it was. I knew I had a heart for it, but he really kind of like unraveled it for me. It was and kind of like just developed the passion to like a whole nother level. So with falling in love with stories and storylines and characters and plots and so on and so forth, I think the writing kind of came just second nature to it, because I was essentially a fan of the writing. And it started with just like poetry, just kind of like getting my feelings on paper, things that I couldn't express out loud, not to my family, not just to my family, but like to my friends, to my school. Yeah, from there, I think it developed into creative writing and like trying to make my poems creative. You know what I mean? And just like everything just kind of like feeds off the other. Yeah, I don't know. I never thought about photography. I'm kind of awkward on camera, so I don't. If it was photography, it'd be me like taking pictures of other people. But yeah, writing was just like it just felt right. It felt like it was me essentially. It's almost like I didn't have to choose it. It kind of just was like it just felt like that was what was supposed to happen. How has Christianity shaped? Well, so I think that to begin, I think kind of like similar to what you said. Like I think the Bible is a baseline, I think, on how to live your life. But I think as you grow as a person and get older and experience things, I think you take these experiences and you learn how to make your morals off of them and your ethics and things that you believe. All contingent upon the baseline of your Bible, of your foundation of your religion. But I saw something that said deep thinkers have the hardest time with religion and relationships. And I would like to think that I'm a creative thinker, a deep thinker. I overthink a lot. So I never questioned that Christianity was not the way of life for me. But I think that when growing up in such a strict household, writing kind of seemed like my place to be experimental. And to me at the time, experimenting was speaking out loud what I felt. To me that was experimenting. So it's kind of like how do I go to church on Sunday and live in this house where it's a strict, like Christian beliefs and morals, and then I got to spend 8 hours a day at school where none of that exists. You know what I mean? And I have to kind of like find my way, and kind of always feel like my mom is almost, because when you're that young, it's not God watching you, it's your mom watching you. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have a relationship with God that young, so it was like everything I did was kind of like with my mom over my shoulder. Like I can't do this because I feel like my mom is gonna, you know what I mean? And I think when you get older, you develop that with God. But being young and writing, it was kind of just like that was my way of being able to like step off the porch, when my mom's not there, and like maybe I can say this because this is only going to be seen by me. I'm keeping this to myself. You know what I mean? So in a way, Christianity helped me because it gave me a baseline. And you'll always be safe. I felt as though I'll always be safe because I always had that baseline. I always have Christianity to fall back on if this doesn't work, or if I realize that what I'm thinking is ridiculous. But it kind of quarantined me, I guess, in terms of like, it forced me to be by myself when I was writing. It kind of forced me to have an alternate escape, alternate life almost. So it was helpful. I never thought of it that way, but it definitely helped because I think when something's being, just naturally as humans, when something's being shoved down your throat as far as like a religion or something that heavy, you're going to revolt at some way, some point. You're always going to be interested in the revolt and like what the other side is, and not saying that I was writing about these super dark, like, you know, like anti-Christ things, but it's just, it was okay to know that not everything has to be like from the mouth of God and from the, you know what I mean? Like I can write things that I'm feeling that are worldly. Like I am of the world. Like I live here. So, yeah, that was very interesting. That was an interesting question. No, you good. Yeah.
2, 1.
Our favorite writers. My favorite writer right now is Paula Hawkins because I'm currently reading her. So I'm the kind of person where if I'm reading your book and I like it, you're my favorite writer at the time. So right now I'm reading Paula Hawkins, The Girl on the Train. Consistently, my favorite writer has been James Patterson. I like reading fiction novels because my career goal, what I want to do with my life is I want to be a novelist. I want to be an author. So I read fiction novels like nobody's business. So consistently it's been James Patterson because he does like a lot of like series writings. I'm pretty sure the last James Patterson book I read was Confessions of a Murder Suspect. I don't know if I read that last or Swimsuit, but I read one of those last and I thought it was amazing. But spoken word artists, if you ask me that, like poetry writers, it would probably be, number one is Olivia Gatwood. And the reason I like her so much is because she's not a metaphor-heavy poet, meaning she relies on her projection and her expression and her like fragmented sentences and like things like that to get her point across. And she's very what's the word? She stands for something, and it's so evident in all her poems, and just in her like persona and who she is. I really like Rudy Francisco, where like on the opposite end of the spectrum, he's a very metaphor-heavy poet, and he's amazing at it, don't get me wrong, but I think Olivia Gatwood does less with more. She does more with less, in her arsenal. Sabrina Benaim is also one of my favorites. So yeah, in terms of poetry, my favorite writers are a lot of like the button poets on button poetry. But as far as from a fiction standpoint, it's definitely James Patterson. Gillian Flynn too, actually. Gillian Flynn, I do like Gillian Flynn. She wrote, if you ever seen the movie Gone Girl, she wrote the novel to that. And she also wrote a book that I read called Dark Places, which is pretty solid of a book too. I believe that's on HBO. I'm not sure if it's that or Sharp Objects, one of those two. She also wrote something called Sharp Objects. But Gillian Flynn is actually a really good writer. So yeah, that's probably my favorites. My first time on stage was horrific. So I was really high on the adrenaline of, I don't know if it was like, I feel like it might have been Tony Robbins now that we're talking about it. I saw something on the internet, and it was when I started writing, and I was like, when I first started writing, I only showed like my roommates in college, because I didn't want to show anybody else. I didn't know that it was okay to be a poet. I didn't know that. Coming from where I came from. Because most creative expression came in the form of like rappers and like photography, I think was big at the time. But like nobody where I was from was doing poetry. So I didn't know it was okay to be a poet. I didn't know it was okay to be myself openly, which is weird. But so yeah, I don't know. I feel like it was Tony Robbins. It might have been somebody else. But I saw something that was like, a lot of people don't tap into their full potential because they're afraid to, or something along those lines. And it was just like, it was kind of speaking to the idea that like you have something great inside of you, and everybody does, and a lot of people don't get to tap into it, or refuse to tap into it, or don't care to tap into it. It was at a very pivotal point in my life where I was like itching for like something more. It was like when people were like decide they want to get their first tattoo. Like that pivotal point was I want to take that next step in my character, or whatever the situation was. But so I wrote this poem for my roommate, who I since then have rewritten, and it's amazing now. But to my honor. But so my buddy was having an event at Rutgers, New Brunswick. He was having an event, and I'll never forget it. And I reached out to him. I was like, "Bro, can I perform at your event?" He was like, "Yeah." So I went to school at Rowan, so like it was like an hour, some change ride, and my roommates are in the car smoking weed like on the way there, and they were like, "Yo, you want to hit?" I was like, "Nah, bro. Like I'm terrified. Like I don't know what I'm doing. Like I don't want no weed in me. Like just wait till after the show." So we get there, and I'm shaking, bro. I'm shaking. They call me up, and it's a very like emotional poem, like the poem that I performs. And bro, I forgot my words to the poem. And I was like, oh my God. People watch me, it's my first time. Like, there's other great performers who went before me and after me. So I'm like, yo, like it's so obvious that like I felt like I wasn't supposed to be there. Like, I'm like, oh, whatever. So because the poem was emotional, when I like kind of like forgot my words and like lost my footing a little bit, I like kind of like just like ducked my head a little bit and tried to like make it seem like I was like feeling the poem. And it took me like 5 seconds, which is a long time on stage, by the way. 5 seconds is very long. It took me like 5 seconds to like recover and remember what my words were, and I like hop back into it. But that one little gap was like followed by other sequences where like I was remembering my words as they came out my mouth. So it wasn't fluent. It was just like, oh yeah, that's the words. And I kept going, whatever. But yeah, that was horrific, man. And it's crazy because like I think I'm better at it now. I like to think I'm better at it now, but like I always laugh at that performance because it's like if I would have given up on that performance after that and been like terrified to get back on stage, I wouldn't become who I am today. So it's a laughing point now. It's a staple. It's kind of like a benchmark. But that was my first performance was horrific actually. That was funny. If I could, this is gonna sound funny, but I would definitely collab with Shakespeare, right? But, because you said they're alive. But the reason I would collab with Shakespeare is because I think a lot of his plays were like kind of like had dual like plots, like there were two things happening in his plays. I don't think Shakespeare was that fire, actually. Which is weird because I have Othello tattooed on my arm, but 2 of like his 800 plays I thought were like fire, and it was Othello and Hamlet. And I think that some of them he had solid ideas, but back then I guess the humor wasn't what it is now, and it's like not funny, or some things are like overly dramatic. It's like too dramatic, and like he just was kind of like weird to me. I don't know. I think my collab with him would have been me like kind of like sprinkling my own little like opinions and stuff in his writing. Modern day, I think I would want to collab with, I think that would convert to like being on stage. So like spoken word artists I would collab with. There's a really talented artist. His name's Blake Melvin, from Philly. He's from Philly. A very good friend of mine. We became friends through like poetry and like the whole poetry scene in Philly. But he's probably, in my opinion, he's the best poet in Philly. In my opinion, extremely talented dude. I definitely want to collab. We actually talked about collabing, but like I just really want to do it because he's the kind of person like you walk in a room with him and it's like rappers when they get in the studio. It's like they friends, but the one that's better always makes the other one rap like 10 times better than what they normally do. Like he just pushes. His talent makes me want to be better. He's a very talented artist. And Blake, I would like to collab with. I like to do a lot of poems over like guitar strings. So like another really talented artist that I've worked with, his name's Ian Murphy. He's not from Philly, but he lives in Philly now. We actually had a project together that we worked on called Confessional. And I would definitely like to work with him again. He's an extremely talented guitarist. And Balmore is another one I really want to work with. Balmore he is from Philly. He's a singer, songwriter, extremely talented if you get the chance to look him up. And he actually asked me not too long ago, he sent me like a sample of one of his songs and asked me could I write something to it. And I was like, been waiting for this moment forever. So yeah, I would say Balmore, Blake Melvin, and I want to work again with Ian Murphy and Hannah Lorimer is her name. She's really talented as well. So I think so I guess backtrack, I guess, to when I decided to start writing, it was for selfish reasons. And I don't mean selfish with like negative connotation, but like it was just for me, right? The second you put it on stage and the second you put it on the internet and it no longer is just about you. And maybe it is, but it would be, I think, unrealistic to say you don't take into account your audience and who will be hearing this and who will be listening to it and reading it and so on and so forth. So as a Black artist, I think Black people in general, like take away the artists of it, I think Black people in general have a responsibility. And I think that responsibility, whether you want it or not, you do, right? And that's just the way it is. And you can stand for Black people by way of the way you dress. Some people be like, I wear all black because, what I mean? However you want to express it, like, but something about you needs to be for your people, right? Because people died for us, right? People died for us to live free. People died for us to vote. People died for us to be able to eat certain places. People died for our existence, pretty much, in a society. And in a world where we are the minority, or in a country, I'll say, where we're the minority, you kind of have to have that chip on your shoulder in terms of how there's always a target on your back, to say the least, I think, being Black. There's always a target on your back. So with me doing poetry, I try to write poetry for, it starts with myself, but like, sometimes I'm a voice that somebody else doesn't have, right? So I can write a poem, for example, I have a poem, I'm not gay, and I have a poem that's for gay rights, right? Or like homosexual rights. I have a poem that's for, I'm not suicidal, I have a poem that's for suicidal people, right? I can't do these poems for these people and not do something that is for my people, right? That's not like derivative of who I am, right? So like, I think I try to just keep that responsibility in mind. And I think that now that I have the platform of poetry where like people are looking at me and what I'm saying, it's important to and not every poem has to be Afrocentric, right? But like, I try not to go too long without kind of like just like re-exercising that responsibility. So I think like the art is, I feel like kind of like all we have as Black people, to be honest. I think of it in terms of like corporate America and like monetary sources and things like that, we are not in a position of power, and we probably never will be, at least for a very long time. And I think that the art is what we have. I think that's something that we can kind of like take and like strongly be like, this is ours. Like, this is what we do. This is us. So I think it needs to be used sometimes to combat the world around us, because, you know what I mean? Like, that's all we have. It's the only thing we own that we have the copyrights to. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, it's rough, I guess. It's rough because sometimes too, like, you don't know how you should do it, but you know you should. And sometimes you have to, like, the only way to do it is to be radical about it and to be kind of like obnoxious about it. But you do have the responsibility. Artist or not, as a person, you have that responsibility if you are Black. So, yeah.
2, 1.
Are things experience is sometimes better than education. I think education can come from experience. I'll say that much. Not always relatives. Black. Conquers all. And I truly believe that, not to be a cliche. Art inspires art. False evidence appearing real. Line from my poem. Actually, I have a poem that talks about this. Religion means don't question. Relationship means growing to understand. Ugly. You are the flowers to my garden. You are the flowers to my garden. I often confuse sunlight for your smile and fantasize about our offspring. You show me what life means. You show me what fight means. Pull back the shades on my introvert. You show me what light means. You laugh at the right times. Forgiving me for transgressions and treat past times like past times. Conversations over spilled milk we never put in our coffee. You're the cartoon after a scary movie I'm afraid might haunt me. You're a sight for sore eyes. A sandy beach to my sunrise, and sometimes I know it gets cloudy and storms get rowdy, but I'll be the shelter to your storm during gray skies if you allow me. You know everything, that's everything that there is to know about me. I couldn't hide if I wanted to, and I never wanted to. You want a family, I want a family. If you want it, I want it too. You wanted to give me one daughter, I said screw it, I wanted two. I wanted everything you wanted because I meant it when I said I wanted you. No Indian giving promises. No receipts on secrets. I let my guard down. You 5-on-4, my defense, no false pretenses. Volleyball serve expectations. You're the candle lights in my meditation. Don't Kemba Walker, my commitment. I won't step back for separation, because in times of desperation, you're my safe haven. Sanctuary, my chapel. The ode to my Grecian urn. You John Keats in my chapter. I never chastise nor baptize the squeaks in your laughter. I'm a sucker for that smile. Succumb to your every request. And to that beat and diamond in your chest, I'm forever grateful. No way I could ballpark my gratitude. Thankful to God we crossed paths and made new avenues. Word. All right. Yeah, they start over. If I had a word of advice, I guess it'd be a couple words of advice, but for one, man, I mean, whether you believe in God or not, I personally do. I believe the same way you have a blood cell, same way you have a heart, you have organs in your body. I think when God made you, He made you with a purpose. And I think that purpose is in your DNA, no matter what. You can't escape it. I think it will always be in your DNA. And I think once you find out what it is, it may not be easy to find for some people. I always tell my boy, like, the story of a dude who didn't know his passion. He went to, his friend asked him to do yoga, and he said, no, I hate yoga, why do I do yoga? Ended up going to yoga after his friend begged him to, got hurt doing yoga, had to go to the doctor, found out he had a rare disease, and went through 6 months of treatment for that disease, and he was cured by it. He then went on to become a doctor. Why? Because he fell in love with the process of healing and everything that he learned in the process of when he was sick himself. None of which he may have ever found if he didn't do yoga. So I say that to say, to some people it may not be easy. Some people know they're destined to do music, and they know that, like, they know that. Some people have to go out and explore different things to find what they're passionate about. And when you find it, man, like, just lock in on it 100%. Do what you gotta do to really perfect that craft, whatever it is. It's not gonna be easy. It never is easy. I have a buddy who's trying to be a comedian, and he looks at my, I guess, Instagram presence, and he's like, I want to get to where you are. I want to be an Ugly Steven. I want to be a whatever. I let him know, like, we just met, like, me and him met like maybe 2 years ago, and got close over the last year. And I told him, like, you didn't see 4 years ago when this was starting out, and you didn't see when I was trying to write poems and I questioned, because it was so hard, if I was meant to be doing this or not. And times I wanted to give up, and times that I thought I wrote one good poem, but it wasn't meant for me to continue. You didn't see that process. You didn't see you see the finished house. You didn't see when I built it. You didn't see when I had to call the plumber in and do the plumbing. You didn't see any of that. So it's a journey for everybody. It's never a straight line. It's never a straight line journey. Sometimes you'll take 5 steps forward, you take 7 steps back, because you should have made it right instead of going left. You know what I mean? So whatever it is, man, just once you're the only person stopping you. So once you make your mind up to attack that passion, just fall in love with the journey of it, the wins and the losses that come with it. It's going to take time, but it's always God's time and not yours. You got to remember that as well. And yeah, man, like, you got something in you that will make you great. Everything that you love, an iPhone, started with a mind, with a brain, with an idea. And you have a brain, you have a mind. So you have $1 million ticket waiting to be cashed in your head right now. You just gotta find what it is and capitalize on it. So yeah, man, go out and attack your dreams, find your passion and attack it 110%.
En ce moment, c'est l'enregistrement. Oui, alors, tu vois, quand le son
Quand
arrive...
tu parles, les fréquences
alors,
sont portées ici dessus. Oui.
Voilà, suivant qu'on parle plus ou moins fort,
Oui.
ou que le son... Alors,
Oui.
c'est la
Les
lumière qui
fréquences
indique.
correspondent aux
C'est ça.
fréquences enregistrées.
Alors, il ne faut pas que ce soit trop violent. Là,
Oui.
là ça va.
Sa profil est sensible.
Oui, enfin, plus ou moins.
Oui.
Bon, alors là, on va entendre ce qu'on a dit jusqu'à maintenant.